those people who really started with, sitting like this and talking with their arms crossed, by the end of this conversation, there were tears on both sides of the Zoom meeting.
Hello and welcome to Share.Care's What is Manly radio show and podcast. Men feel more lonely, lost, and not useful in society than ever in history. Males are not attaching to school, work, or women. What it means to be a man appears lost. Is there a framework for being manly that we can unearth?
Welcome to Share.Care, an all-inclusive community sharing experience, strength, and hope to create strong, healthy, and inspiring relationships. Share.Care communities work toward every individual feeling safe, valued, and heard, free from the threat of danger, pain, or harm. Each episode, founder Damian Andrews explores the principles underpinning Share.Care and invites expert special guests to share their knowledge so you can easily reap the benefits so many others experience. You hold the choice to create your future. Let it be with strong, healthy, and inspiring relationships.
Hello, Rupa. How are you?
I'm doing fantastic. Thank you for asking. How about you?
Yeah, I'm doing really well too, and really enjoying this world that we're living in post-COVID, where we can connect more freely than people thought was possible before COVID. But isn't it nice how we can actually? Yeah, well, I mean, for a lot of people too, I mean, I'm lucky I got to travel to at least 44 countries. I stopped counting. And just met so many wonderful people in those travels. But a lot of people don't get to do that. But now with the way that we do communicate, we get to meet so many more people and get to understand that diversity that makes up the world we live in. I think it's wonderful. Is that your experience as well post-COVID?
Absolutely. Absolutely. I think this is one of the best parts about being on, utilizing technology to make the world a smaller place.
Yeah, and it's just so much we can learn from people around the world as well, which I think is fabulous if we're open to learning. That is, I think most people are generally. But for the audience, who we have Rupa Patil here. Now, she was born into a large lower middle income family in Mumbai. Now, when she was going to school, she says her teacher said, "You're good for nothing," which she believed for decades. But notwithstanding that, she worked for large companies such as Amazon, Lenovo, L&T, and then she became a certified mastermind professional, an international mentor, trainer, author, and a keynote speaker. All really cool stuff. And today she's inspired to play big, and she's on a mission to support at least 10,000 heart-centered entrepreneurs who are driven by income and impact. Welcome to the show. I love the work that you're doing, and I love the story that you've been through, where you had that. That's a horrible teacher that you had. Let me just put that bluntly. That wasn't a very nice thing to say.
Teachers.
Yeah. Isn't it funny how we have that?
Thank you so much for inviting me.
Yeah, no, it's a wonderful pleasure to have you on the show and talk about that, and because we want to get, and Share.Care is an all-inclusive community, a global community where we welcome all people in and have views and discussions and talk about what's going on, because we are, as we're talking about in the pre-show, about having the world being, well, actually in the start of the show, I'm losing track here, about the world being a little bit smaller and we can communicate with each other and learn from each other. And from that perspective, one of the things that has happened in the world today is for some people, for some men, that they're feeling a lot more lost and lonely and not useful in society. What have you seen from where you are? What have you noticed in that space?
Are you asking the question only about men or people in general?
Well, it's a combination of both. I mean, I think it applies to both. It's interesting how we've got with the technology now. We have more technology to communicate, but a lot of people feel more lonely than ever before. which is kind of really interesting, I find. But certainly we're part of what we wanted to do with this show is address, what's happening with men. So go ahead.
Yeah. True. Thank you. Thank you for that question. And I couldn't agree more with you, especially during COVID. We all experienced, and it's a global phenomenon that we all experienced, the seclusion and isolation and being with our family for much longer than we are used to. It almost felt like a social experiment, and it was funny and not so funny for so many of us. I agree when you talk about the isolation and the seclusion part, especially during COVID. That was also one of the reasons why, and I can say that so confidently because during COVID, I opened up my calendar and just as a service to the community, because we couldn't step out, we couldn't do things. I was not one of those COVID warriors who could go out and do something. I'm not from medical profession, so I still wanted to do something, contribute. So I opened up my calendar, and during COVID, almost 5 to 8 hours a month, I used to just open my calendar and invite people to hop on and speak.
Oh, wow.
Speak their hearts out. You don't need to share your email ID, you don't need to share your phone number. You are not my lead. You and I, we are just connecting heart to heart. And during the phase, of course, initially when I was inviting people, people are like, oh, what's her ulterior motive? Why is she calling me? And what's in it for her? So I literally found it difficult to invite the first set of people. But once that flow of people started, I started speaking with people, especially single moms and single dads from different parts of the world. And some of them, I still don't know what their names are, but those people who really started with, sitting like this and talking with their arms crossed, by the end of this conversation, there were tears on both sides of the Zoom meeting. And I do get goosebumps when I talk about it. I spoke especially with single moms and single dads who had so much going on in their lives and so little support because they had to be strong in front of their kids with barely any support system. I distinctly remember I spoke with, one woman. I still don't know what her name is, but she was from US, some of the cities, one city that I was not really very sure of. And she was crying the moment she got on phone. She started crying, saying, you know what, this is the situation, my job is gone and I am on, low on supplies and stuff like that. And by the end of this call, I asked her, do you need any help? And then, while on call, I was able to find out who the, not-for-profit organizations are in her community, in her area, and connect them to her. And within a week's time, she actually responded to me saying that I can't believe that, you just sat there listening and actually tried to help me. This has never happened. And I don't know if we are ever going to speak again, but thank you so much. And this is not about me. This is not about her. It is about using technology to actually connect with people who really need it at that point of time.
I love that you did that you just opened up and allowed people to talk. That's quite, I think it's an amazing thing to do. I love the first part too. You talked about how people are a little bit standoffish, going, "What do you want? Where's the sales pitch going to come?" And we have that sort of. I think we've been hit by so many salespeople now that we do have that natural defense. But this part where you allowed people just to talk, when you think about that, you gave that explanation, but also too, you were able to connect that person with people in their area. And I'm wondering what it was there where she wasn't able to reach out to people in that area. What do you think made it, from the perspective of you were able to connect with her on the other side of the world, or maybe not exactly, but I'm an anally retentive and I like to measure things. So it's probably not exactly halfway through. I count my steps as I'm walking, But from that, what do you think it was that enabled her to open up to you?
I think the fact that, this is literally a third person. I have got nothing to lose. It's a no judgment. Worst case, if she turns out to be a psycho, I can just cut her off. She doesn't have any contact number of mine. I think the fact that, people can open up, because it's difficult, even for me,
Mm.
even though I can open up and connect with absolute strangers, for me, even today, it's a little difficult to connect with my, known people, friends,
Mm.
family. I'm more comfortable speaking with one of my mastermind partners from Germany, or one of my community friends, a newfound friend from Netherlands. I would rather do that, because I know that the judgment, this
Mm.
is pretty much a no judgment zone, and stakes are
Mm.
low
Yeah.
as compared to my Canadian friends. So I feel it's that, and especially when it comes to feeling helpless, it's not so much about capability. Every single
Mm.
individual that you and I speak with are adults, responsible adults, and brilliant people. But
Mm.
at times, what we need is just a reminder of how brilliant we truly are. And it's great if the reminder comes from somebody who really don't know you much, and they can see the brilliance in you.
It's an interesting point. Do you think part of that fear, this, as you said, there's no judgment there, that you've created this environment where it's no judgment, which is, and people can feel free in that. Have we, from that perspective now with social media, because when we were talking before about listening as well, have we lost that art of listening with social media? Is it more about, there's a lot of putting opinions out there, and because, and it becomes not only quite aggressive opinions at times. So that cancel culture, and people are fearful that if they say something wrong, they're going to get completely shut down. Do you think that's stopping people from actually opening up and talking about, what is bothering them, or?
Publicly, yes. I believe that is why, as compared to an open social media forum like a
Mm.
profile page or a Twitter, you and I, we have seen that people are more likely to open up in smaller communities, be
Mm.
it a LinkedIn group or a Facebook group or
Mm.
a forum which is surrounded by like-minded people. So
Mm.
I would personally not really open up and ask for help on a public forum, and it has been a flop thing anyway. So by experience, I would rather ask for help inside a private forum
Mm.
or community of like-minded professionals. And that is a space where I believe that you're more likely to be heard, to
Mm.
be not judged, and to be helped.
Yeah. So that confidence that you're going to be heard, is that what we need more of, those spaces? Is that what you're saying?
Absolutely. And that is why I'm so obsessed with creating this heart centered culture. I don't
Mm.
care whether you are a business owner or not, whether you are a leader, corporate leader or not,
Mm.
from where you are and based on what you do, you can literally ignite the leader in you. And
Mm.
while you're doing that, while there are so many amazing forms of leadership, I believe that today the world absolutely needs more heart-centered leaders, people who are empathetic,
Mm.
kind, and yet strong.
Mm.
That is where it comes from, being
And
more
when
heart-centered.
Yeah, well, when you're talking about that from that heart-centered leadership, from that perspective, we're looking at, is that being more authentic? Because I think genuine, if we look at ourselves, I think most people are good people in their heart, but they get a little bit toughened up. And then there's a shell that comes in, or shell's probably not the right word, because you want something a bit stronger. It's called more like an orange, a really tough orange to peel back. We have one of those oranges that you're trying to get to the inside and you can't peel the peel off. Is it?
Yeah, shield
Yeah,
up.
exactly. Yeah, you've got to work through it. Is that, what's happened, where we've people have got so, put so many layers on to protect themselves that they forget that there's this actually really ball of light inside them.
Absolutely. I mean, I think it's more of a rhetorical question, because all of us know that what we are, even before becoming a dad or a friend or a company owner,
Mm.
essentially we are human beings, social
Mm.
beings.
Mm.
And, but it's true that, somewhere on the way, we
Mm.
are taught, we are literally taught and coached and guided and suggested to be more strong, to suppress the emotions. And
Mm.
I can speak for myself. I can absolutely speak for myself. Think about in school. In
Mm.
school, if I am the weak one,
Mm.
the more emotional one, the more vulnerable one, possibilities, there are higher chances that I may get bullied. And
Mm.
the only way to, kind of avoid that is being tough and, being a bully
Mm.
myself, at least portraying that. And that pretty much continues even in the corporate culture, colleges, of course, but corporates, very interesting. I don't know what your opinion is about on that, but during my corporate life, I was actually I have worked in amazing companies with incredible bosses
Mm.
who also developed as my first mentors. But one of the first things that I kept hearing in my annual reviews and personal coaching on and on is, Rupa, you need to keep a poker face. And that was the first time I heard the term poker face. I said, what is a poker face? Well, how do you put it? Okay, you know what? There are no black and white and grays, and keep a poker face. And you are so you're so animated when it comes to appreciating people. You go all overboard. You see everyone when you are appreciating someone. That's not how you're supposed to do. And I was like, why can't I appreciate my team in public if they are doing great? Why can't I express my emotions? And if I do that, that doesn't make me weak. That
Mm.
actually makes me a very open and empowering leader. So there was always this conflict. So I think, to answer your question, and especially even in businesses, right?
Mm.
We have seen some of the most famous business leaders, and I don't want to name any, but some of them are also traveling across planets. But they come across as this really tough. I'm not naming any, but they come across as this
Well,
tough
you narrowed it down to
people.
a few, but not one.
Yeah, exactly. See, so they come across as this tough people using this harsh words, and there are tales about how the millionaires of the world are really aggressive bosses. So somewhere I think we pick on these clues and tell
Mm.
ourselves, create our own narrative, saying, oh, if I want to be perceived as a serious, as professional, as a multimillionaire dollar business owner, I need to suppress my emotions.
Mm.
So, of course, that is changing now, but that's still, unfortunately, what I see as the majority.
Mm.
Maybe my son can say it differently when he grows up.
Fair enough. But is that a case from that perspective? Because we know, there's a difference between, because we know that appreciation works as a motivation tool better than a stick. That we know that there's you appreciate, you show people that you appreciate what they do. They flourish with that. If you're leading with a stick, as soon as you take the stick away, people go to doing whatever they were doing before. So it's not a really good way. We know that authoritarianism, if I can speak, doesn't work. And you just have to look at, one of the world leaders starting with P at the moment. He's just losing complete grip of the country because of the authoritarian style. And we know that doesn't work. On the other side of things, when you've got that raw emotion too, as a leader, when you're looking at that, and is it a case, from your experience, that there are certain areas you mentioned about having a safe space to talk about and seek help. Same token, if you're a leader, there must be a certain element of strength that you must project, because otherwise, how can you be leading people if you're not? Is there a balance between that?
Absolutely, absolutely. And I think here I would like to take names like, there are so many in India. There are so many business leaders who are absolutely empathetic, and they are one of the most successful business leaders that India
Mm.
has seen. Like
Mm.
the Tata's group has seen Ratan Tata. we are very proud of him as a business leader, but he's also known as a very compassionate and very, helpful and very social and a giver. So, and at the same time, he's seen as a very strong leader. People look forward to, experience his leadership. So there are like him. There are people, I think all over the world, there are so many. So I think especially men, because I know there are so many men listening to this podcast, I would really invite them to experience it for themselves and throw it out of the window if it doesn't work, but at least experience it. Experience it, right? So the moment, and every man and woman, especially if you are in your 40s, chances are you're married, chances are you are a dad or a mom, and there is an element of compassion that automatically comes there, because we know that the positive reinforcement works a lot in comparison with negative. So we are very selective how we portray ourselves there. But when it comes to professional, we are sitting there with a mask. So my invitation, and it's a very heart-centered invitation to every single individual, male or female, listening to this podcast, to experience that balance. As one of my amazing mentor and my favorite trainer from Canada, Robert Raymond Ryapel, says that it's not just a balance, right? It's not that one day you are going to find the perfect balance. It will always be a dance. Yes. Sometimes you'll be more emotional, sometimes you'll be more strong, sometimes you'll be more empathetic, but it's a balance, and you constantly need to keep shifting and enjoy that balance. Yeah. And forgive yourself today if you're not able to maintain that balance. Tomorrow is a new day. Yeah. But experience it. It's beautiful. You will love yourself when you do that.
And I'm wondering from that perspective with the leaders you talked about, and I'm very jealous. If you get the opportunity to introduce me to the leader of Tata, please do that, and Jaguars are my favorite cars. And if I remember last time, that Tata owns Jaguar, and I think Range Rover as well. But you got my top two, yeah. So yeah. Now I'm losing. I'm getting all emotional about cars. But on emotions, there's my segue. When we're talking about emotions, because we're talking about that compassion, and I want to take that further to sensitivity. Now, we all know that women are highly empathetic. That's stereotypical. Women are generally empathetic. Now, men are brought up not to be empathetic, not to feel emotions. And there's a lot that I'm talking with a lot of people about that. Unfortunately for me, I grew up with a mum who was very strong in that space, and I had that ability. And then for me, it became a little bit weird because I was posted to the SAS when I was in the army in Australia, which is the Special Forces, the best of the best. Now, all those guys there that I was associating with could all ask for help and they could all express emotions. But then when I look at it, one, you can't do that job very well for a long period of time if you can't ask for help. And everyone was screened, myself including, where we did a psych test before we went there. So my guess is that they knew what they were looking for in the sense of those people could do that. So I kind of got a biased sense of the world. The question that I have from that is from that emotional side of things, and from talking with people, it seems to me this sensitivity actually gives you even more power to do things, because you're able to, when we talk about listening, you're not just listening with your ears, not just your eyes, but your whole body, because you're sensing what's going on around you. And it's kind of, and I make it like, to me, it's an analogy like referencing Star Wars here. It's like the Force. You've got this additional power. If you open up to that and sense these things, you can actually sense what's going on. Is that, when you're dealing with men and women, what is your noticing with women and their sensitivity and men, and is it opening up for men, or is it just staying stagnant? What's the situation there?
Beautiful question. And wow, what an amazing background you've got. I would love to learn more about that from you.
we can have a different subset called Pondering Life, where we just discuss things. So maybe we can have one of those chats later.
Yes, indeed. And great, that's a great question. And recently, I would like to tell a little story about that, because recently, I think it was in the month of January or February, I invited on one of my talk shows, which is for my private Heart Leaders Club members. I invited one of the captains of Merchant Navy. He has been on ship and in rough seas for a little over 20 odd years.
Yeah. Wow.
And when we are talking about Merchant Navy, we are literally talking about life and death and real life and death situations and instant decisions and strength, at the same time, sensitivity. And he shared this heart-touching example of situation where, you know, the part of being sensitive with strong sensitivity with strength. He demonstrated that so beautifully. So he was talking about in Merchant Navy, as you know, and as the listeners know, the ship is far off the coast for months together.
That's right. Yeah.
Right. And what happens in an unfortunate incident of a crew member who is your own buddy? What happens when you lose a crew member on the ship? It is not a crew member which is washed away in rough seas. One moment you were talking to this person, other moment a storm came and it hit him, and he's no more. He's not breathing the next second.
Yeah.
Now you have to live with that situation for 5 to 6 months. And at that point of time, especially as a captain of ship, probably this person was your best man. Probably this person was your closest buddy. Probably this person was even related to you in one way or the other. And at this point of time, you have your sensitive side, which is crumbled to pieces. And you have a role to play as a leader with strength. And I think who better than people like you who have been in situations like this, and especially men, and of course, women in their situation, similar life, life-based situation where they need to be strong. At the same time, they know that they are feeling that sensitive, that while you're grieving. I think this is probably the ultimate test of finding that balance. So I think there are so many more, experienced experts who can talk really strongly about this topic than me.
Yeah.
And this cannot come out unless and until people like you and this captain are brave enough to talk about vulnerable moments like this, to accept, come out publicly and say that, hey, at that point of time, I broke down. I cried in front of my crew. My people actually saw me in tears. And the other moment I had to pull my socks up. We will not learn, the world will not learn if a leader, a strong leader, does not demonstrate and talk about their vulnerable moment. And therefore, I feel that heart-centered leadership is, as much as it is about being heart-centered, it is also about being strong enough to be vulnerable and authentic.
From that perspective, what you're talking about there is role modeling, if I'm hearing correctly. Is it a case where do we have enough role, particularly, I mean, this is what is manly, so from that perspective, is there enough role models for men? I mean, it applies to women too, but generally women are more likely to get together and have discussions and talk. I know not everyone, but but men are not so much. Have we lost role models? I was kind of lucky. I used to go and play golf and lawn bowls with my dad when I was a little kid, and then he'd joke that he got sick of me and sent me off with his friends. But that was just, when you play golf, you play in a group of 4. And we would just, initially first few games I played with my dad, and then, I would go off and play with other men. And similar when we were playing bowls as well, lawn bowls, I would play with another group of 3 men. And without thinking about it, now when I look back, I can see that it was there, but I didn't notice at the time. I'm just a young kid asking questions. So not only that I was encouraged to ask questions, I got to experience this. And it's not, even though you're asking questions about the technical aspects of the game or something like that, but you're getting a broader range of knowledge of behaviors. And do you think from that perspective that we've lost a little bit of that from a male perspective, that there isn't the male groups that there used to be? Because I know here in Australia, they certainly have women's gyms, and there's a whole thing like that, which is okay. And I'm not just saying that they shouldn't have that, but I had a friend, or I have a friend in Queensland, and at the gym they're at, they have a rock climbing gym and they have a women's group, but they wouldn't dare have a male group because it'd be deemed sexist.
Unfortunate, isn't it?
And I'm just wondering, do we need to kind of bring that back again? I know I have a 14-year-old son, and he comes with me. We have occasionally with friends, we have a poker night, which is, it's not a boys' event, but women don't come generally because we tell fart jokes and things that women don't want to be around. But my son has come a number of times with me and been part of that, and been part of the boys hanging, making fun of each other in a lighthearted way, not a mean way. And he's held his own and had that experience, it's like the 2 rams, butting heads against each other, just to have, just that, that growth. That, do we need more of that for guys? Do we need to be able to create those spaces again?
I totally feel the short answer to that is absolutely yes. Everyone needs a safe space, irrespective of the gender.
Yeah.
Even irrespective of the age, for that matter. And certainly irrespective of the profession.
Yeah.
So one thing that I feel men in general do a lot better than women is having these, groups. Like, I know for sure that my husband, he's an extremely social person than I am. I would any day hide under the table if I've been called out on a weekend, but he, on the contrary, will go. Also because I feel, and this is common in so many men, and I could literally visualize women nodding their head as I say that a man in general would have his school group, his college group, his first office group, his second office group, his gym buddies, his golf buddies, and they do have that little groups, right? And while some of them might be totally fair weather friends, or just as a transactional buddies or one-time communication, I get that. But I feel that men, on the other hand, as compared to women, they do a fantastic job of staying in touch and keeping a connection alive, which is, at least here in India, I know that I don't have any school friends, but my husband and so many other men that I know, they do have these groups. But that's on the personal front. On professional front, because going back to our first communication where we talked about the no judgment zone, and they know a different version of you. Maybe you have grown to become a very different version that they are aware. I get that. And that is where I think there are 3 very important ways that men and even women can easily seek and be in that safe no judgment zone.
Yeah.
And number 1 to it, which is my go-to for everything, is having a coach or a mentor.
Yeah.
I have been investing my life savings into upskilling and learning, but my biggest investment has and will always go in investing and being in proximity with a fantastic mentor or a coach. I think that is the highway, the super highway to success. Also, So that is what I feel. So first one on my list is having a coach or a mentor, irrespective of, and we all know that even Tony Robbins and Richard Branson and the best leaders of the world, they have their coaches and mentors. So why not
Mhm.
us?
Yes.
So that's first. Second, which is I'm a big fan of, are mastermind groups.
Mm.
And you can be in part. I mean, I'm a big fan of mastermind groups myself. I've talked about it. So mastermind could be anything. It could be related to your personal, or related to your hobby, or it could be related to your profession. And you
Mhm.
don't need to be, I really want to tell this to every single person, remind them. I know you know it, but reminding all of you that for becoming to become a part of mastermind group, you don't need to be in business. You can be where you are, but find a mentor, find a mastermind group. And I think that is the best non-judgment zone that you will ever get. And peer-to-peer, right? What you probably may hesitate to talk to your mentor about, you may
Mm.
not hesitate to speak with your mastermind group or peer about. So that's first is a coach or mentor, second is mastermind, and third, we talked about it, is a community of
Mhm.
like-minded individuals.
Yeah.
So pick, and there are so many options. So pick one of these three, or tell me if do you think there is a fourth one that I might have missed out on?
I mean, because community covers that very much. It covers a lot of bases there. But it can be, that community can be a sports club or something like that, which you mentioned as well, with your husband doing that. And the mastermind group, I love that you said that you don't have to be in that space. I remember before I owned a Range Rover, I was part of the Range Rover's owners group, and I didn't have one, but I was going to have one, and I very quickly did.
Manifestation.
Exactly. And it's really interesting what I've found, and I wonder if it's from your perspective, but you mentioned about the owner of or manager of Tata. I've had the good fortune of meeting a number of people that are really successful, and even from the perspective I hadn't even met them. I remember when I was in Perth as a young kid. I say a young kid. I was 18 or 20 or somewhere around that area. Like, that's a kid still. You think you know
Yeah.
everything, but you don't. But there's a really there was in Perth lived. There was a guy called Ralph Sarich, and I think at the time he was worth about 600 million. And I wanted some advice from him, and I found out where he lived. So I wrote him a letter, and I put it in his mailbox, and I put a return envelope in it as well. But he actually wrote back to me. So yeah, yeah. So it was really, and that's where from that perspective, I'm just wondering from where you are, do you have that same experience? Because I've had so many people that were, I would say at the time were, well, certainly from a success point of view, business or whatever at those points in time were well ahead of where I was. But I asked them for advice, and I said, "Oh, look, I'll buy you a coffee, I'll buy you lunch." And they went, okay, and made an appointment through the secretary and stuff like that. But we did that. And we had lunch, and they ended up paying for it anyway, but they gave me a chunk of their time, which is extremely valuable, and gave me lots of great advice. So I was just wondering, is that similar, from what you're experiencing where you are?
Oh, yes, I have been blessed to have that experience multiple number of times.
Mm.
And this is a common thing. I would really want to reiterate what you just said. Ask,
Mm.
ask. ASK, ask. Do not hesitate, ask, and I know it is difficult when we are reaching out to somebody who is far ahead, or probably even role models, our role
Mm.
models. There will be a big hesitation in asking. And I've had both the experiences, Damian. So the first one is when I was quitting, I was in on that transition to go
Mm.
from a full-time corporate life into business life. And I thought, oh, I'm so smart to reach out to not one, but 11 different business owners
Mm.
to say, hey, you know what, I'm going to start this business and I would like to get you 2 cents. I'm willing to pay for it. And funny enough, I did not hear back from a single person. All men,
Mhm.
all men.
Yeah.
Okay. One person reached out just to tell me that what makes you think that I would be interested in helping my upcoming competitor.
Mm.
Now, I know that that is where this that seed of heart-centered leadership might have planted very subconsciously, because that was one day where I told myself that in the coming years, if some aspiring entrepreneurs ever reaches out to me, and if I can help him or her, I will never say no.
Mm.
And I have pretty much stood by that.
Yes.
But a couple of years later, I have had so many experiences where one of the most amazing and my first business mentor, who back then was, even today, he is exclusively a senior leadership mentor. So he actually mentors only CXOs of the world.
Yeah.
And looking at me and my struggle, and I think my persistence, he reaches out to me saying, hey, my name is so and so. I was the person responsible for bringing this big corporate into Karnataka, that is my state, India. And he said, I would love to offer my business mentoring to you pro bono.
Wow.
And this is where I was not ready. And I'm being very open and I'm sharing this because I don't want others to do the same mistakes that I did. So one of the biggest mistake was when this person reached out, I was like, oh, he is amazing. But why would he invest in me? And who am I? And why should I take up his time? Major self-doubt. And I just thanked him. I said, you are great, but I don't think I am worth your time.
Oh, wow.
And I refused it.
Wow.
A year later, he again reached out to me.
Really?
I don't think I had ever that experience. And a year later, he again reaches out to me saying, now are you feeling worth my time? And I'm like, oh my God, I absolutely need your mentorship. Yes, yes, yes. For those people and this person is responsible. He has been responsible. He was the most senior corporate leader, a very successful one, and heart-centered to the core. In fact, he was the reason why I probably would have started with the term heart-centered. Still in touch with him years later, and I'm still so grateful. So this was somebody reaching out, and a couple of years later I had the opposite experience where I reached out to two of my incredible mentors, whom I mean incredible trainers, authors, and keynote speakers, whom I felt would not even read my message or email. And this person reaches out to me saying, young lady, be careful what you wish for. And I'm like, oh my God, I can't believe you have reached out to me. And he said, be very careful what you wish for because you wanted to work with me. And the truth is, I also want to work with you. And within 3 months' time, we struck a joint venture deal. And he also later became my business mentee for a specific segment that I am good at. And he was just getting started with. And I couldn't believe that at all.
Wow.
So long story short, believe in yourself. And when opportunities come to you, please don't say no like some crazy woman in India did. Don't do that mistake. She has already done that. But certainly reach out to your idols, your mentors, your role models, and embrace the miracle that follows that transaction. So that's my suggestion.
So what was the difference in you between the first time he asked and the second time? What did you go through? Because the first time you've asked, you said, I'm not worth your time. The second time you're obviously a different person. What was that? Because I'm asking that for the question for the people that are sitting at home going, I'm not worth getting out there and doing anything.
Yeah.
What was your shift? What was that shift for you?
I think the biggest shift was internal, where by that end of 12 months, I realized there are so many things that I am still obsessed to do by myself back then. And within that 12 months, when I saw that there is not much of a difference between the start of the year and the end of the year. I'm pretty much maybe just a few steps ahead of where I am today than what I was 12 months ago.
Mm-hmm.
And the only thing that I was doing was trying to figure it out by myself, because I constantly told myself that, hey, Rupa, you're such a strong person. You can figure out things by yourself. You're so smart. You have books. You listen to podcasts. You are so crazy about upskilling. You can figure that out by yourself. Then I started reading more, and that the biggest shift happened when I realized that I don't need to figure things out all by myself.
Mm-hmm.
There are people who have been there, done that.
Mm-hmm.
And while I cannot buy time, I can buy shortcuts.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that was the biggest shift.
So
And although I was still very skeptical.
I'm just saying, because when you said that you weren't worthy of his time, it was, where did that come into that?
So I think, and the fact that I realized, that is what I was mentioning. So although I still didn't feel totally worthy, because I know that he used to mentor, and he still mentors only the top CXOs of the world.
Yeah.
And at that point of time, I was not a top CXO anyway. I still am not. So I was wondering whether I'm still worthy his time. However, I really wanted a help from somebody who had been there, done that. And the very fact that this person was open enough to offer, and I felt it is foolish. I have done that mistake once of rejecting an opportunity of learning. I can't afford to do the same mistake twice.
Right.
So it was a chance, a gamble. And I think he still took a couple of sessions with me only to make me realize that self-worth is what you perceive. So I still worked a lot. There was a lot of work to be done on my mindset.
So from that perspective,
But I did it anyway.
Yeah, it sounds like you had a bit of, there was fear there in accepting that to start with. And then there was also fear there accepting it the second time, but you had the reflection of going, I've knocked that back and I'm not going to do that again. So the fear was still the same. The self-esteem position was roughly the same, but it was like, I'm not going to miss that opportunity. Is that my understanding correctly? Internet's going a little bit funny.
Precisely. So as one of my mentors, in fact, T. Harvey. Can you hear me all right?
I've got you now. Yep. It just went a little bit quiet there for a minute.
Yeah, sorry about that. So I was saying that, yes, what you said is true. And as one of my favorite authors and trainers, T. Harv Eker, says, that feel the fear and take action anyways. So I think the second time around, I did that. I had the fear, but I took the right action anyway.
Yeah. And I wanted to explore that because, I mean, a lot of people think courage is not feeling fear. And, from my perspective, I know that's not the case. I know, I feel it every day, just do it anyway. But it's got to the point where you kind of notice it and just, it's kind of like this annoying little insect and just like brush it away for me. That's where I'm at with it. But it doesn't mean it doesn't exist. So from that perspective, because I know we're running short of time now, what would you be encouraging people to do in this space for people that are feeling lost, lonely, and not useful in society? What would you encourage them to, if you were to wrap that up in a nutshell?
I would say reach out. Be brave enough to reach out to at least one person. At least one person who is non-judgmental. And the first person when you reach out to and you figure out that this person is judgmental, start over the process again. Reach out to the second person. But please do not tell this to the listeners as much as I tell this to myself. It's a constant reminder. Reach out.
So just reach out anyway, it doesn't matter. And if you get a knockback, it doesn't matter. Just reach out to somebody else. Yeah, I love that. I love that. Rupa, I know you have to run, but thank you very much for taking the time. It's been so wonderful chatting with you. Sage advice there as well, just fundamentally simple, but I think life is simple. We just overcomplicate it. And they're not my words. That's from Confucius, so I can take that. But thank you for taking the time.
And thank you very much for inviting me, and a little message to all your listeners, if I may.
Yes, of course.
So a little request, a little message to all our listeners is, especially men, I just want to thank you, those of you who are tuning in. I just want to thank you for being here, and more importantly, thank you for being heart-centered and supportive to so many women and men in your life. So thank you very much once again, Damien, for calling me. It is a pleasure and honor to be on your show today.
Thank you for being part of the Share.care community and helping people around the world prosper. You're creating a bigger pie for everyone to share. The more people contributing to the world being a better place, the better the world becomes, for others and for you.